4:49 local time. The Arctic is quiet in a way that feels unnatural. No wind, no swell. Just a flat, steel-gray horizon where the sea and sky seem to blur into one endless surface. Ahead, the water looks calm, but the hull tells a different story. Steel senses what the eye cannot. A faint vibration moves through the deck plates, almost unnoticed at first, then steady enough that everyone on board can feel it. On the bridge, no one says a word. The radar changes before the lookout calls it in. One contact becomes three. Three become five. Large vessels, slow speed, holding formation. Their paths are not clean lines across open water. They are pushing through the ice, shaping it as they move. Around them, the frozen surface shifts, splits into long white seams, then closes again behind their wakes. New surface contacts, bearing 047 through 112. The report is calm, precise, and entered without emotion. The contacts are not fast. They do not need to be. To the forward windows, dark shapes begin to appear at the edge of visibility. Broad bows, heavy hulls, low, solid superstructures. Ships built not to glide through the sea, but to force a path through it. The ice reacts before anything else does, cracking outward as if pressure has been released from beneath the surface. Nuclear-powered icebreakers. No one on the bridge says the words aloud, but everyone understands what they are looking at. Condition 3. The order is quiet. It does not need to be repeated. Watertight doors cycle shut. Consoles brighten. Systems come alive across the ship. But the vessel does not turn. It does not increase speed. It holds its line, steady and deliberate, as if waiting for the Arctic itself to reveal the next move. And then, the ice begins to answer. Sheets start closing in from port, slowly, deliberately, driven by currents the ship did not create. The lead icebreaker shifts its angle by only a few degrees, not toward the vessel, but toward the water ahead of it. The result is immediate. The open lane begins to shrink. White pressure ridges rise where only minutes earlier there had been clear water. On sonar, the world becomes crowded with sound. Ice groans, hulls echo. The clean acoustic picture breaks apart into overlapping noise that no filter can fully separate. Bearings blur, contacts merge. In the Arctic, clarity is never given easily. The icebreakers keep moving at walking speed. No radio calls.
No dramatic signals. No show of force. They do not need to close the distance quickly. Every meter they gain changes the shape of the water around them. Range decreasing. Ice density increasing ahead. A hand moves across the charts table, following a route that existed 10 minutes ago and no longer does. Out here, calculations shift by the second. Movement is not measured only in knots. It is measured in pressure. A lookout calls from the starboard wing. Ice closing from starboard as well.
The situation tightens without spectacle. The icebreakers do not have to surround the ship. Instead, they guide the ice, compressing it into the space the vessel needs to maneuver. The Arctic itself becomes a moving barrier. On the bridge, the captain watches the bow. His voice stays low. His posture does not change. In moments like this, calm is part of survival. Another contact moves into view, closer than the others. Its hull throws aside slabs of ice taller than a man. A second vessel follows through the channel it creates, then shifts just enough for the water behind it to begin closing again. The message is not spoken. It is felt through the soles of every boot on deck. There is no panic for them to exploit. This is not a high-speed exchange. It is geometry, mass, and time. Forward lane is closing, the navigator says. Recommend assessment. The recommendation hangs in the air, unanswered. The ship continues on course. The icebreakers slow even more, almost as if they are encouraging impatience, waiting for one wrong decision. Around them, the Arctic tightens its hold. The open water ahead begins to shrink, narrowing into a thin ribbon, wide enough to tempt the helm, but not wide enough to trust. Ice from port presses closer towards starboard. Pressure ridges grind together with a deep sound like thunder rolling far beyond the horizon. No alarms, no raised voices.
Just the hum of systems and the slow movement of ice behaving in ways it should not.
On radar, the contacts settle into place. They have reached their positions. The ship is not boxed in by the vessels themselves. It is boxed in by the ice, and the space left to maneuver is disappearing. The first mistake would be to focus only on the icebreakers as marks on a radar screen. Their tracks are steady, predictable, no sharp turns, no sudden burst of speed. By normal standards, nothing about their movement looks urgent. But the Arctic does not follow normal standards, and neither does the tactic unfolding across the ice. The ice moves first. Long sheets begin drifting across the bow, not pushed by wind, not carried by swell, guided almost invisibly by mass. Each icebreaker displaces thousands of tons of frozen water as it advances, and the sea answers like a slow, obedient force. Pressure ridges rise where open water had been moments earlier.
Cracks spread outward in white veins, then close again as the cold seals them behind the moving hulls. From the bridge, the effect is immediate and measurable. Speed over ground is falling. Not because the engines are easing back, but because resistance is rising. The lead icebreaker shifts a few degrees to port, not toward the fleet, away from it. At first, the move looks meaningless. Then the wake reveals the purpose. Broken ice rotates, slides, and piles into the last usable lane. Open water turns to slush. Slush begins to lock together.
The path ahead starts to vanish. This is not a direct approach. This is control of the terrain. Below the waterline, sonar operators struggle against a wall of noise. Ice does not simply float. It grinds, scrapes, fractures, and carries sound through the water in every direction. The acoustic picture fills with false returns and overlapping echoes. Contacts that were sharp only minutes ago now blur into confusion. The icebreakers are unaffected. They were built for this world. Heavy bows reinforced for impact. Power plants running steadily beneath layers of steel. They do not simply move ice aside. They command it. Every meter they gain changes the environment behind them, leaving disorder where there had been clarity. Contact spacing remains constant, CIC reports. They're not closing on us. That is exactly the point. They do not need to close. The ice is doing it for them. To starboard, another icebreaker moves forward, matching the lead vessel's pace.
Its hull opens a shallow channel, then shifts just enough to release the fragments behind it.
Free to drift, free to freeze again, free to slide directly into the fleet's projected route. The Arctic closes gaps without effort. The helm responds with tiny corrections, degrees, not turns, just enough to test the resistance ahead. The answer comes to the hull almost instantly. A deeper vibration, a heavier drag. Every option becomes smaller. Forcing straight through the ice would cause speed and control.
Turning too far would expose the hull to pressure from the side.
Stopping completely would hand the initiative to a frozen sea that does not reward stillness.
And the icebreakers wait. No radio traffic, no bridge-to-bridge calls. Their silence feels intentional. Words would define the moment. Silence lets physics speak for them. A lookout reports from the port side.
Ice density increasing. Flows are stacking.
The flows are no longer drifting at random. They are compressing. The pressure ridges climb higher now, slabs of ice grinding against one another in low, brutal tones. It is not dramatic. It is constant, relentless. Inside CIC, projected maneuver lanes disappear one by one from the display. Routes that existed moments ago are shaded out, replaced by live sensor data that cannot be argued with. The Arctic does not bluff. The situation is no longer theoretical.
It is visible, it is measurable, and it is closing in. One icebreaker slows even more, almost coming to a stop.
Its power system is not concerned with momentum. It can simply hold position and let the ice build around its hull, forming an obstacle no standard naval vessel would want to challenge at speed. Another icebreaker moves across the fleet's forward quarter. It does not block the way directly. It does something more precise. It influences the flow. The result is exact. The final clean lane begins to break apart, then fill with drifting fragments. The realization settles across the bridge without a word. This is not about fear, this is about control. The icebreakers are not trying to overwhelm the fleet, they are taking away its choices. Every movement now has consequences, not because of a direct confrontation, but because the environment has been turned into the deciding factor. On the bridge, the captain watches the bow enter a narrowing corridor of gray water and broken white lines. His expression does not change. The Arctic has become the instrument, and it is being used with precision. The ship does not respond the way the other side might expect. There is no sudden burst of speed, no hard turn, no attempt to force a path through ice that was never meant to be crossed aggressively. The engines keep a steady, measured output, as if the frozen sea itself has been included in the command calculation. On the bridge, silence is deliberate. Every sound matters now. The low hum of machinery, the distant grind of ice against steel, the faint crack traveling up through the hull like a quiet warning tapped against glass. No one speaks unless there is a reason. Helm steady!
The order is simple. It buys time. Above the ship, a helicopter lifts cleanly into the pale Arctic light. It stays low, its rotors beating a tight rhythm over fractured ice and dark water. The aircraft does not range far. It does not challenge the icebreakers. Its role is observation, not escalation. Eyes forward, always forward. From above, the pattern becomes clearer.
The ice is no longer moving at random. It is flowing in shaped lines, compressed in some places, loosened in others, guided by the slow, deliberate motion of the icebreakers. The gaps are not closing evenly. They are being formed. Back in CIC, updates arrive in controlled bursts. Ice movement confirms channel manipulation. Acoustic conditions degraded. No clear forward solution. The data confirms what instinct already understands. Power alone has no answer here. Technology cannot pressure physics into making room. This is not a problem that responds to force. It responds only to judgment. The icebreakers now hold position, engines barely turning over, power steady. They do not advance. They do not pull back. They wait. And the pressure keeps building even without them moving another meter. That is when the final option disappears. A narrow lead in the ice, the last remaining ribbon of open water, begins to fracture under its own weight. Slabs rotate, collide, and lock together. The lane does not vanish in a dramatic moment. It simply becomes unusable. Forward route no longer viable, the navigator reports. No one argues. The bridge team understands the meaning immediately. Staying still will only tighten the pressure. The ice will continue to shift and compress until mass and movement decide the outcome on their own terms. The captain steps closer to the forward windows. He studies the ice, not the ships. The opposing vessels are visible, but the real danger is structural. The Arctic does not care about intent. One icebreaker changes position. Not quickly, not aggressively, just enough. Its bow crosses near the fleet's projected line, closer than anyone would prefer. In open water, the distance might look safe. In ice, it feels much smaller. Broken floes roll and pile together, push toward the ship's path like debris gathering in a doorway. On radar, the maneuver appears minor. Through the hull, it feels decisive. The ship responds with restraint. Engines hold. The rudder adjusts by degrees. No dramatic movement, just enough to avoid contact, just enough to remain free. This is where discipline matters.
A careless turn would put pressure against the hull. A sudden burst of speed could drive ice beneath the bow and reduce control. Every obvious solution creates a worse problem. Time stretches. The icebreakers remain silent. No signals, no calls. Their intent is already clear.
They are not here to create impact. They are here to force a decision. And that decision cannot be rushed.
The captain does not look at the clock. He watches the ice. He watches how it shifts after the smallest correction. He watches how pressure moves when mass changes direction by even a few degrees. This is not about winning in the usual sense. It is about keeping enough options to survive the moment. Inside CIC, the display does not look promising. Maneuvering space has collapsed to a narrow fraction of what it was. The Arctic has reduced the entire situation to inches, seconds, and pressure. Then, slowly, something changes. A ridge ahead begins to relax. Not much, just enough for a trained eye to catch it. A seam appears where two ice floes grind past one another, instead of locking together. It is not a clear passage, not yet, but it is movement. The captain sees it. The icebreakers either do not see it, or they see it too late to respond without giving up their own position first. The silence breaks, not through words, but through intent. The moment is brief, and it belongs to whoever understands the ice better. The change is so subtle that only one person notices it at first. Not on radar, not on sonar. Through the forward windows, a line in the ice shifts. It is not opening, it is not clearing, it is easing. Two massive floes grind past each other instead of pressing edge to edge. Even the sound changes. Less resistance.
More motion. It lasts only seconds. But out here, seconds matter. The captain does not explain. He does not need to. Helm, 5 degrees starboard. Maintain speed.
No urgency, no raised voice. The ship answers gently, almost carefully, its bow edging toward the disturbance. The vibration through the hull changes. Not lighter, different. The ice beneath the bow is no longer stacking cleanly. It is sliding. On a normal chart, the maneuver would look strange. Out here, it makes perfect sense.
The icebreakers hesitate. Not because they lack power, but because they are already committed. Their own size now works against them. Their power systems remain steady. Their hulls are built for pressure. Their bows are reinforced for this environment. But in heavy ice, momentum is not something you simply take back. To counter the ship's movement, they would have to move forward. To move forward, they would have to disturb the very pattern they created. So they hold. The ship continues its measured adjustment. It does not push hard ahead. It does not retreat. It simply changes the balance between pressure and space. The ice responds first. Then the water beneath it follows. Pressure decreasing on the bow. The reports come in quietly, controlled and precise. The seam widens. Not enough to call it a channel, but enough to create breathing room. Broken slabs begin to rotate away instead of piling up. The Arctic does not open doors. It loosens hinges. Overhead, the helicopter confirms it. Ice movement ahead is shifting. Flow changing direction.
The words arrive without celebration. There is no triumph here, only a brief chance, and it will not wait. The captain makes the next decision.
Maintain course. Do not accelerate.
That is the moment the trap begins to fail. The icebreakers were made to dominate frozen water through weight, power, and forward motion. They shape the environment by pressing, braking, and advancing.
But they are not built for patience at this scale. They cannot easily answer a ship that refuses to challenge the ice directly. As the vessel holds its steady line, the pressure ridge ahead gives way under its own imbalance. One slab tilts, another follows. Dark water rises between them, absorbing stress that only moments ago had been building against the hull. The opening is narrow, but it exists. On radar, the contacts remain steady. The icebreakers have not closed in. They have not pulled back.
They have not changed the tone of the encounter. For the first time since this began, they are responding instead of shaping. One icebreaker adjusts heading, trying to regain influence over the flow. It comes seconds too late. The ice no longer follows cleanly. Broken fragments drift outside the pattern. The Arctic slips beyond anyone's full control. The ship moves through the gap without changing speed. No burst of power, no dramatic turn, just disciplined motion through a space that did not exist a minute earlier. Ice scrapes along the hull, loud but controlled. The vibration is heavy but even. This is resistance, not capture. "Clearance holding," comes the report. Behind the ship, the ice begins to close again. Not suddenly, not violently, inevitably. The Arctic always takes back what it gives. The window is already narrowing. The captain does not look back. The icebreakers now face a decision of their own. Move forward, and they risk closing the distance too much. Stay where they are, and their influence begins to fade. Pull back, and the geometry they created disappears. They choose none of those options. They hold. The ship continues along its line. The opening widens only enough to allow passage, then begins closing behind it like a mark sealing over. Ahead, the water turns darker, deeper, and less confined. The trap is no longer complete. No alarms sound, no voices rise. The bridge stays calm, almost clinical. This was never about overpowering the situation. It was about making the right decision while every option was getting smaller. Minutes later, the ice density drops sharply. The flows thin out. Movement becomes easier to read again. The Arctic is still hostile, but it is no longer being shaped into a barrier. The icebreakers remain visible in the distance, their dark hulls set against white ice and grey water. They do not follow. They do not signal. Their part in this moment is finished. The ship has not forced its way through. It has passed because the crew understood the ice. The Arctic falls quiet again, as if nothing happened. Distance opens slowly. Not enough to invite relief, not enough to feel like an ending. Just enough for the pressure to ease and for the frozen sea to return to what it has always been. Indifferent, cold, and unforgiving to anyone who mistakes silence for safety. The ship maintains course, speed unchanged, heading steady. No movement that could be read as retreat. No movement that could be read as challenge. Professional distance is preserved exactly as discipline requires. No comment, no flourish. Behind the stern, the ice closes once more. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It simply resumes its slow, grinding motion, sealing the gap that was never officially there. Broken flows lock back into place. Pressure ridges settle. The Arctic erases the evidence, with the patience of something that has been doing this for thousands of years. On radar, the icebreakers remain. Their tracks stabilize. Their formation holds. No pursuit, no repositioning. They stay where they are, framed by ice and grey water, as if fixed to the moment itself. No radio traffic follows. No statements. No warnings. No acknowledgement. Only silence. On the bridge, the crew does not celebrate. There are no exchanged looks, no visible release of tension. This was not a victory. It was a passage, narrow and temporary, earned through restraint and precision instead of force.
"Log the event," the captain says. The words carry more weight than any speech could. Below decks, systems are checked. Not because anything has failed, but because discipline does not wait for a reason. Hull reports come back clean. Propulsion remains steady. No serious issues beyond surface ice abrasion. Marks that will fade from the steel, but not from memory. The helicopter returns smoothly, settling onto the deck as its rotors slow. The aircrew says little. The footage will say enough.
Ice flow patterns, hull spacing, timing measured in seconds and meters. The Arctic captured frame by frame, not for display, but for understanding. As the ship moves farther from the compressed ice field, the sonar picture clears, the noise fades, contacts separate cleanly again. The environment releases its grip, but not its warning. What happened here will not make headlines. There was no exchange, no impact, no public statement. And still, everyone involved understands what it means in waters like these. Control in the Arctic is not always shown through speed or noise. Sometimes it is shown through patience, through mass, through the ability to shape the environment without ever touching another ship, and through the discipline to know when force would only make things worse. The Arctic does not forgive miscalculation. It corrects it quietly, completely, without witnesses. Steel can bend, hulls can lock in place, momentum can disappear.
The sea can turn solid, and solid things do not negotiate.
The ship continues southward toward open water, where the rules feel clearer and the physics less personal. The horizon widens, the light begins to change. The pressure in the hull settles back into a familiar rhythm. Still, no one fully relaxes. Moments like this do not end simply because distance increases. They remain in logs, in data, in memory.
Every course correction, every pause, every second of silence becomes part of a larger understanding of how power is tested in places where conventional answers lose their meaning. Behind them, the icebreakers remain on station, guardians of a domain where endurance, reinforced bows, and patience can matter more than speed. Ahead, open sea waits, wide and deceptively free. The lesson is never spoken, but it is impossible to miss. In the Arctic, control is not declared, it is demonstrated. And sometimes, the most decisive move is knowing when not to move at all. The ship holds its course, the ice closes behind it, and the Arctic keeps its secrets.